All right, let's see if anyone shows up. I don't have a very good internet connection, so I'm sorry about that. And I'll have to let people know, so feel free to share this link now so that more people show up. And yeah. I'm going to talk about my course on Nietzsche. The quality sucks. That's both. If you want to enroll in the course, I think you should do it probably now because it's filling up quite quickly. I opened the course on, I think I opened enrollment on Thursday. It's Sunday now. And it's filling quickly. I think for the seminars, it should be about 10 people, and self-learners is a couple more already. So feel free to ask any questions if you have any. The course will be, I have to add the course details before I can start. And you will see them here in the chat and also maybe somewhere else. I don't know how this works. Maybe I'll just post them as a comment so you can see them for yourselves right here. So if you enroll now, it works in that way. You go on Teachable, you sign up, and you type in Nietzsche 50 to get 50% limited, 50% off the course. And I'm currently at a writer's retreat, you could say, writing the course. I've finished 2 lectures out of 7, and I might do another live stream on the course just so that people know better what it's about. I'll open the syllabus now. The course is entitled "Thus Spoke Nietzsche, Nihilism, Amor Fati, and the Eternal Recurrence of the Same." The course will have, as I said, there will be 7 lectures, and it will be mostly on Nietzsche's experience of nihilism, Nietzsche's understanding of Amor Fati, life affirmation, and his understanding of time as the eternal recurrence of the same. But the course will start with an introductory lecture on the will to power and the uncanny wheel work. And the course will then move on to a second lecture, which is the lecture I just finished writing, The Birth of Tragedy and Monumental History. And so these are 2 texts by Nietzsche that are from his early days. The Birth of Tragedy is his first book that he wrote. Sorry, I haven't been speaking much English, molto solo italiano questi giorni, and monumental history. I think that what Nietzsche is trying to argue in The Birth of Tragedy is that it's time for a rebirth of the tragic sense. And this is something that will recur in Nietzsche throughout his writings. The leitmotif of Thus Spoke Zarathustra is incipit tragedia. Tragedy begins. The beginning of tragedy, of tragic existence, of tragic life, of a sense of tragedy in this overly optimistic time. Now, the reason why Nietzsche is so critical of optimism is that for him, optimism and progressivism, etc., and of course liberalism as well, is nothing but a sign of decay. Optimism actually has to conceal from itself its own sickliness. And so the optimistic epoch, the optimistic era, the optimistic age is an age of decay and not even of proper decadence, of just a loss of memory, a loss of understanding. I'm reading a book entitled Se Venezia Muore, when or if Venice dies, and it begins with a chapter which is entitled Smemorata Atene, which means Smemorata Atene, the Athens that has forgotten itself. And Nietzsche is, on the one hand, weirdly enough, all about active forgetting, but at the same time about not really forgetting the origins. But so because what he's critical of is this overarching historicism of his epoch. When he writes the use and abuse of history for life, he's clear that history is absolutely necessary to exist. We need history. Without history, we are not human, actually. We are actually, we are animal-like for Nietzsche. So we do need history, but we don't need critical history, and we don't need antiquarian history, even though antiquarian history for Nietzsche is an activity of love for one's place and appreciation for one's city or one's country, etc. And the critical historian, of course, is the one who just looks back and wants to tear everything down and is fueled with resentment. But monumental history, and this is what Nietzsche is after, I think, in The Birth of Tragedy, is exactly that history that can look back, actively forget what it does not require, and can project towards the future a new destiny for itself, but not completely out of nothing, but really out of its own history, so that it doesn't become a Smemorata Athene, an Athens that has forgotten itself. So that will be the second lecture. By the way, anyone who signs up for this course will get free. Maybe I should mention what this is about. So this is a course about Nietzsche that I will be teaching. This is my 4th online course this year. It's all original material. I'm writing the lectures as we speak and as we go along. The course starts on September. Porco Dio, non parlo inglese anymore. The course starts September 28th, which is Monday. There will be live lectures. If you can't make it to those lectures, that's fine, because those will be recorded and uploaded. And there will be one live lecture every week, and then there will be for 7 weeks straight, every Monday, and then there will be group seminars for everyone who signs up for the seminar tier every Saturday for 7 weeks, starting sometime in early October, which is, I think, on the 3rd of October. That's going to be the first day for the group seminar, which is a Saturday from 6 to 8. You'll find more information when you follow the link down below in the description or here in the chat. So you can sign up via that link. And if you can make it to the live lectures, what will happen there is that I'll speak for about an hour. That will be over Zoom. I'll read my script. I'm writing a book on Nietzsche at the moment, and that is the lecture course. And when I'm done with it, you will have submitted questions. I will pick 1 or 2 of them. I'll answer the questions. And then I'll open up the foyer. So everyone who's there, let's say we're 40 people on the course, 25 of you, 30 of you show up to the live lectures on Monday. Afterwards, after I'm done with my speaking, I'll open up what I call the foyer, which means that you will be able to, there'll be breakout rooms on Zoom, which means that you will be able to to talk to your peers on the course. And I'll just leave those open until nobody's left, right? Because you can do that on Zoom. I'll just open, let's say there's 30 people who show up to the live lectures. I'll open up 10 rooms, 3 people each. And as soon as nobody's left there, I'll close the breakout rooms, and until then, I'll just leave them open. So that should be this time. As I said, this is my 4th course this year, and this will be the most interactive because on top of, if you sign up for the middle tier or the highest tier, on top of the live lectures, there'll be group seminars, which I lead on Saturdays, but there will also be work sessions on Wednesdays. That means that we just meet over Zoom as if in a digital library where we come together and either prepare something for this course or prepare something else that we're working on. There won't be much talking, and I will be practically writing my lectures during that time. If you sign up, what you get access to is probably more than 7 hours of lectures in terms of audio or video. It's probably more like 8 hours, what it's currently looking like. And a text, you get the pre-edition, as it were, of the book. And after the 7 seminars, there will be a group seminar which you can attend and where you present your work. You can find several of those pro seminars already on my channel. There will be a couple on my Heidegger course and a couple on my Idleness with Dignity course. And so students can present their own work. You don't have to do it publicly. I'll be happy to read one of your essays. So if you write an essay during this time of the course, send it to me. I'll read it. I'll give you comments on how to improve or where to go next, perhaps. And yeah, so that should be, I want to make this as academic and as immersive as possible for these coming 7 weeks. As I said, it starts on September 28th. So I've just mentioned that the first 2 lectures are, first one, Will to Power and the Uncanny Wheelwork. Oh, here's something that I should probably mention. We will read some of the most important texts or books published by Nietzsche during his lifetime, like Thus Spoke Zarathustra, The Birth of Tragedy, On the Use and Abuse of History for Life, Beyond Good and Evil, and passages from The Gay Science, etc. But I will also, every single time, work in parts from the Nachlass, the unpublished notebooks. Let me get something. I'm going to be gone for 10 seconds. Let me get some books. Now, I don't know if anyone can hear me. So as I said, I'm writing the course at the moment. This is what I've been working with. So I've been working with these books for about 10 years. This is The Birth of Tragedy, and some of the posthumously published texts. What I'm working in is the Dionysian worldview, etc. And here are the notebooks from 1869 to 1874. So every single time when I'm reading one of the published texts, I'm reading the Nachlass as well, the posthumously published notes, and work in those because Nietzsche is incredibly rich in these notes. And they're not, as far as I know, they're not yet published in English, as far as I know. So especially the Nietzsche on nihilism, it's strange. Nietzsche is, of course, famous, which is a weird thing to say. He's notorious for his writings on nihilism and his understanding of nihilism. But he's not written much, at least in what we know as his main books on nihilism. It's mostly found here in this. And this is where you will find Nietzsche on nihilism. And I will work those in. So I'm translating those from German into English, and we'll make them available for people on the course, and of course people who will get the book afterwards, and people who read the lecture notes, etc. So this is not an application course. This is philosophy, right? So philosophy is not about application. I'm sorry. So this is a question about whether you can apply this. Philosophy does not care about application. Philosophy is thinking, and thinking itself is already the best application you can ever get to. And so this is a philosophy course. It's very important. This is not some Amor Fati bullshit, self-help nonsense. This is proper philosophy. You want to understand why Nietzsche is such an important thinker for us today. Thinker. Very important. So, after the Birth of Tragedy lecture, which is the second one, we move to nihilism, the death of God. You'll find videos of that. We'll find videos on my channel on nihilism, but I really get into the depths here. So sorry, I didn't want to be dismissive here, but you'll see I have un po' passione per filosofia. I have a bit of passion for philosophy, which sometimes just gets me a bit. So, anyways, what I can say to Mr. Prometheus is that when you actually take these thoughts seriously, obviously they change something. Because Amor Fati is about life affirmation that's not stupid, optimistic rationalization. It's about accepting and affirming suffering. That's what Nietzsche is basically all about. And without this acceptance of suffering, we will continue to be incapable of existing in a proper way in the age after the death of God, which is what we are suffering through. And you can see consumerism, materialism, whatever ism you want to call it, they're terrible remedies for what's going on, right? I mean, nihilism now is in everybody's mouth. Why do you think everybody's talking about Nietzsche now? Because Nietzsche says in one of the, I think it's in this one, in this posthumously published notebook, where he says, nihilism will be the history of Europe for the next 200 years. This is in the 1880s. Nietzsche speaks of an unhomely, uncanny wheelwork, Räderwerk, where human beings are reduced to ever more finely adapted wheels. And at the end of the process, he says, we will wonder, what was all of this for? We need, he says, a new what for. And this new what for, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps we'll be able to formulate one, articulate one for ourselves when we read Nietzsche and we take him seriously. We take this thinking seriously. So this is the third lecture, is actually on the death of God and nihilism as the history of the next 200 years. So this will be a very close reading of the so-called madman, der tolle Mensch, the crazy man, the crazy human being. Actually, it's a Mensch, it's not man, who walks around the city square with a lantern and says, I'm looking for God, we have killed him. And then I go into these posthumously published notebooks. I'll translate them from German into English as we go along. And anyone who's maybe just come in now, I'm talking about my course, which will open, I guess, in a week from now, almost, the 28th of September. You can sign up for it now, and you can actually sign up for it now and get an early bird or something, whatever. It's 50% off, and I'll cap this at a certain amount of people. I've already had a lot of people sign up. So if you have any questions, you can also email me about that. But I think it's always a good group. We've got people already from the US again, from South Africa, from the UK. Someone in Austria said this, some of you will already know each other, and there will be new people too. And by the way, anyone who signs up gets access to my internet forum, which you can use to organize reading groups, which is what people have done. I think what currently is going on is a reading group on Heidegger's Being and Time, and another one on Nishitani's Religion and Nothingness. So that's something that comes out of this. What I'm always encouraging is that you keep reading, right? You don't need to have any degree in anything. Maybe even better if you have none. And but you keep reading. So I think it's fair to say at this point that some of the participants have become friends over over the course of this year, and they're staying in touch, and they read together. Actually, some of them have started quoting each other, which is also nice. And I'm very happy to read essays. So if you write something during this course, send me that essay. I'll get back to you with some comments. I'll refuse to say the word feedback because that's cybernetics. So there will be nothing feeding back to you. I will be reading it properly and then commenting. And then you make of that what you will. And now on to Mr. Prometheus had asked the question about Amor Fati. Amor Fati will be one of the main lectures. The fourth lecture is on Amor Fati, on the great yes to life. Nietzsche from very early on. Nietzsche stumbles up. Nietzsche is a student in Leipzig, and he stumbles upon Schopenhauer. The world as will and representation. Die Welt als Wille und Vorstellung. And he reads the book, and he's taken by it. So we see the young Nietzsche talk about the will almost as Schopenhauer does. He's metaphysically committed to the will. And he's also metaphysically committed to, sorry, it's just my phone went off. He's metaphysically committed to the will as something really, really, really terrifying, as something really, as suffering and contradiction at the heart of existence. But completely, from early on, Nietzsche does not follow Schopenhauer, his Zuchtmeister, as he calls him, his matinee. He actually calls not for the great denial of life, but for the great affirmation of life in the face of suffering and in the face of also the end of history, which is upon us. And Nietzsche sees this already coming in the history essay. Amor Fati is a thought, for example, that which is connected to the eternal recurrence of the same, of course, to this heaviest weight, as he calls it. Nietzsche is, with Amor Fati, and this will come back. So we see how the young Nietzsche of the Apollonian and the Dionysian, the two extremely at odds elements of what the Apollonian is, not the rationalist. The Apollonian is dreamlike veiling of the truth of existence, and at the same time, that's why it's the justification of existence. The Apollonian can justify existence because it makes life dreamlike, livable, and justifiable. The Dionysian is a threat to the Apollonian and the Olympic gods when Dionysus arrives from Asia, as Nietzsche says. But when Dionysus arrives, the Apollonian Olympic gods are capable. The measured god, right? This is what, so Apollon is not a deceiver god. Apollon, even though there are dreams and fancy to justify the world, it's never about deception. It's only about deluding, where you have the Latin root ludere, to play. And the Dionysian, however, does something as it points to the utter irresolvable mystery, utterly irresolvable mystery at the heart of existence. And this is the Dionysian, married then with the Apollonian, is the utmost affirmation of life. And Nietzsche formulates this already in Birth of Tragedy, but will then further articulate this in or with Amor Fati. And Amor Fati means love of what is necessary. Nietzsche is a philologist. That means Nietzsche speaks Greek. Something to understand about the Greek gods is that even the Greek gods are subject to ananke, necessity. That's a Greek word, ananke, means necessity. And what Nietzsche means with Amor Fati is not so much love of fates in this modern sense of anything that happens to you, you start rationalizing it. No, it's that it's more about a justification of everything that occurs as necessary, and that, of course, is where it sometimes gets a bit tricky or perhaps even dangerous. And the Amor Fati lecture, then, the great yes to life, leads on to the eternal recurrence of the same. And I think what Nietzsche does here, I will look at this from many perspectives, because there is a bit of this in his public writings, for example, in the Fröhliche Wissenschaft, the gay science, but it's also, a lot of it is actually, again, in the posthumously published notebooks, which are, to my knowledge, not yet really available in English. I think they are, so they're certainly available in German. They're also available in Italian, but they're not available yet in English, most of them. I will translate those passages that are relevant for us, because much on, on nihilism, for example, Nietzsche says about nihilism the following: nihilism is the uncanny guest at the door of Europe, the coming history. Nietzsche says that the Christian moral hypothesis was a very good, perfect, even was a perfect means to a bulwark, a means to ward off nihilism. But it's lost its power with the death of God. So with the death of God, nihilism now comes to the fore again. Nihilism has always been the history of the Occident. And Nietzsche wants to understand this world as one that recurs, and as it recurs in its sameness or likeness, that's what justifies the world tragically. But we'll also try and understand the eternal recurrence of the same, to take it seriously, not as some sort of an ethical framework or an ethical game by which to live your life. But no, it's as perhaps it is something that Nietzsche is getting at, namely that there are now some shifts in time, have to be, which, so I'm just reading actually a passage on nihilism here. So here's what Nietzsche says. This is in 1886 in the summer, so he might have been in Sils Maria in Switzerland at the time. In German, he says the following: Der Nihilismus erscheint jetzt nicht, weil die Unlust am Dasein größer wäre als früher, sondern weil man überhaupt gegen einen Sinn im Übel, ja im Dasein misstrauisch geworden ist. So this means nihilism today appears now not because there is a certain unlust or distaste for existence, which is now supposedly bigger. It's not than ever before. There's always been the same Unlust or distaste, unlust, the same resentment even towards existence. However, now we have become distrustful of any meaning or sense in evil or in what is bad. And that means in existence itself, because we've become purely Apollonian, which does not mean rationalistic, but which means an Apollonian that forgets, an Apollonian way that forgets its suffering itself and no longer tries to justify also the suffering of the world, but tries to justify the world without suffering. By the way, this is not a theodicy, because there is no creator God in Nietzsche. Nietzsche actually says in The Birth of Tragedy that the Greek gods were not so stupid as to accept that they are the creators of this world. So There's no creator God in Nietzsche, hence there is no theodicy. Giorgio Agamben is very much wrong on this. But I also think that Giorgio Agamben is a culture patriot, so that's okay. So the great yes to life then is nothing like the great yes to life means to accept. Amor Fati means to accept the utter nihilism of our epoch as absolutely necessary. And only then, through this strong pessimism, which Nietzsche was what Nietzsche calls it, can there be at some point again a dawn, eine Morgenröte, a new world. I think Nietzsche is all about birth, to be honest. Some of you may know that I focused on death a lot for the past 7 years in Heidegger. I've written a book on Heidegger and death, which is going to come out at some point later this year. But now it's birth. It's all about birth. Nietzsche wants to help give birth to a new world. And that's what all of his early books are about. And I think that's also what Amor Fati is about. Amor Fati and Twilight of the Idols. Götzendämmerung. Götzendämmerung. Nicht Götterdämmerung. Not the twilight of gods, but of idols, because we don't even have any gods anymore that could be in Twilight. So what happens? What happens in that one? Well, what happens in the Twilight of the Idols on Amor Fati? He says it's sheer becoming, and in this sheer becoming, which logically Hegel would say is not possible because becoming is always becoming something. There cannot be pure becoming. But I think Nietzsche has to think pure becoming, because that would allow to, as he says, to twist free from all guilt, the entire world relieved of guilt. And only then could it be justifiable again. Only then can we say Amor Fati again. That's Nietzsche on Amor Fati. That'll be the 5th lecture, the Eternal Recurrence lecture. Again, I'll work in a lot of there's an interesting note by Nietzsche, which is, again, I think from summer 1886, where he says, 6,000 feet beyond man and time, the thought of the eternal recurrence occurred to me. 6,000 feet beyond man and time. Somewhere up in the Swiss mountains. And up there in the Swiss mountains, Nietzsche has the thought of the eternal recurrence of Lou Salome, I never know how to pronounce her name. She was one of the lovers of Nietzsche, or one of his lady friends. And she said that when he first mentioned it to her, he was almost not capable of speaking it, of saying it. It was such a massive thought for him. The eternal recurrence of the same must have been such a painful thought too. And I don't think it's a thought experiment, because a thought experiment is something very sterile and removed from us. I think Nietzsche is serious about his thought. This is what we do in these courses. We take the thing seriously and then see what the consequences are. Right? If you say something is just a thought experiment, you haven't taken it. You don't need to take it seriously. If you take it seriously, then you have to look at the consequences in all seriousness. And there is something to Nietzsche, right? You can think of our technological cybernetic epoch as one of an eternal repetition of the ever same. And as Nietzsche says in the Zarathustra, the will is resentful, revengeful against the it was, against time and the it was. And so it wants everything to be repeated again and again, and does not allow for something else to occur. And of course, this is why all of Nietzsche, there's this extreme tension, and he often speaks of the bow and the tension of the bow and the arrow in the bow, etc. And this extreme tension is, I think, mostly expressed in the book entitled Beyond Good and Evil. So if anyone who's just come in. If you sign up now, follow the link below the video. There should be left a comment. I put it in the chat at the beginning. The link to teachable.com, and you type in Nietzsche 50. You get 50% off for now. It's a early enrollment for a couple of days, and then we start next week. Actually, we start with seminars on the 3rd of October and the first live lecture on the 28th of September. And I say it again, for some who maybe weren't there in the beginning. If you can't make it to the live lectures, which are on Monday, then that's no trouble. I'll record them and then upload them to Teachable on that same day. But if you can make it, then I'll try and make this live course, this online course, this time the most social and immersive more than before. Because with live lectures, there will be maybe 25, maybe even more people there, and I'll take a couple of questions at the end, 1 or 2 each time, and I'll then open up the foyer breakout rooms. Let's say there's 30 people joining in. I'll open 10 breakout rooms, 3 people each, and you can talk to each other for as long as you want. I'll leave those open. I won't be there, but I can just leave Zoom open until everybody else has signed off. So that's what I'll do. And the live lectures, then we'll have group seminars and we'll have work sessions once a week. And in addition to the group seminars, which I lead, there will be work sessions, which means we meet, we sit down for a couple of hours as if in a digital reading room of a library, and each silently we all work on our respective things. I'll probably be writing the lecture during that time, because I'm writing the book and the lectures as we go along. I've written about 3 of them so far, and Nietzsche has always been my great love. But yeah, I'm coming back to him now, and I'm coming back to this motive of birth. By the way, if you think that there's someone who might want to listen to this, share the link with them as they can join in. I'll be live probably another 10-15 minutes or so, so make sure to sign up, because we don't have all that many spaces left. I think that Beyond Good and Evil is not really about going beyond good and evil. I think what it's about is about going beyond the moral hypothesis, which is a bulwark against nihilism, and that means Beyond Good and Evil itself wants to go or prepare, as he says in the subtitle, a philosophy for the future. And the free spirit will be very important here. So I will be make much about the free spirit, and that's the 6th penultimate lecture, and the final lecture, of course, will then be on Zarathustra and the philosophy of the future in this Thus Spoke Nietzsche course. And there's a wonderful quote from Zarathustra. We'll begin, of course, with the last man who wants to consume, to flatten the earth. Someone recently posted a very good comment, I forgot where it was on my channel, on the last man. And that'll be the focus of this lecture, will be the last man. And of course also Nietzsche's insight into the Übermensch as a bridge away from the last man, who, as he says, lives longest, who, as he says, is like a beetle that flattens the earth. And here's a strange quote from Zarathustra. Not only the reason or rationality, die Vernunft, of millennia, their madness too breaks out in us It is dangerous to be an heir. So we'll read passages from Zarathustra and try and find out. And yeah, that's so. I think it's Stee. I was just commenting that he's not written much about going beyond good and evil yet. Exactly. So you have to. Here's the thing, but with Nietzsche, it's never just the beyond good and evil is not what it seems to be, really. It's what we always have to ask: what is it that beyond what good and evil means for Nietzsche? Well, if it means for him a moral hypothesis, then that's what he wants to go beyond, insofar as it's no longer capable of being a bulwark against nihilism. And then, of course, you have to ask, well, what's the next consequence? And we'll go through this in the course. And there is a lecture on my channel on Beyond Good and Evil. It's an hour long. You'll find it in the playlist on Nietzsche. So you can listen to that as well. Maybe that's helpful. But by the way, so what the seminars are there for is exactly this, right? You read something in Nietzsche, you read something about Nietzsche, and then you discuss it, not just with me, but also with your peers. And then you take this on further into the forum, and then you can discuss it further in the forum. And whatever bites you the most, interests you the most, that's what you can write about and then also present. So what this will look like is, if you sign up for the mid tier, you get, and the highest tier as well. Oh, by the way, I should mention this perhaps. There's the highest tier, and I always say, this is perhaps for the more affluent, but it makes it all possible, right? It makes it possible for everybody else to do it, and it makes it possible for me to keep going as I'm building this online academy, and of classical philosophy. And and if you're in the mid tier or the highest tier, you can present a talk at the end of it. So you can give a talk either either public for my channel. But if you don't want to do that, that's fine. We won't record it, and you can present it to your peers from your study group or from a group seminar. And so this is what I think the course will look like. I'm not sure if that makes it clear enough. I have a tendency of being all over the place, but there's a good 7 lectures starting next week on Monday, run for 7 weeks, and then 7 group seminars plus an additional seminar where you present your work. And as I said before, it'll be a lot of Nietzsche that's not yet available in English. I'll be translating from the German, from the Studienausgabe, the collected works, edited by Giorgio Colli and Martino Montinari. Giorgio Colli, by the way, says in his afterword to Beyond Good and Evil, so this is the Italian editor of Nietzsche's collected works, he says, Beyond Good and Evil is really about suffering. It is about suffering and about how to not overcome it, but how to accept it and live with it, and not thanks to it, but live despite it or with it and affirm it. That's what Beyond Good and Evil is about, according to Giorgio Colli. And he says we must take Nietzsche seriously because his problems are still our problems. That's why we have to take Nietzsche seriously. And I see that people are enrolling, which is good. And I'd like to point out that if you enroll now, type in that code. Let me know any questions if you have any. You can send me an email anytime. Let me see if there's any other thing in terms of just what the course will be about. Oh yeah, so obviously there will be required or recommended readings in Nietzsche every week, which will be uploaded to Teachable. There's also a digital library with all the texts, and there will be yeah, there will be a certain uh, there will be PDFs of all the books that you will need to read. Except, of course, for the stuff that's only available in German. That won't be. I think some of the really important longer quotes I will upload, but everything else will just be in the lecture notes. And as I said before, this, as we're going along, I'm writing a book on Nietzsche, and I might actually experiment with it. And because I haven't done that yet myself, I haven't self-published a book yet. My book on Heidegger will be out, published by Springer in December this year, and I might just do the Amazon or whatever self-publication with this book, because it allows the book to be published the way I want it without it taking years to come out and having to change too much, and then making it also available at a decent price, and paperback for about $12 or something. Yeah, and oh, by the way, here's a quote from Nietzsche on Amor Fati: "To accept yourself as a fate, not to want to change yourself, that is reason par excellence." So that's Nietzsche for you, Amor Fati. And that, of course, is what the book really is trying to do. I'll say it, Nietzsche suffered through the malaise of nihilism and modernity like no thinker before him, and maybe no thinker after him. And in this course, we'll delve into his accounts of nihilism, the death of God, and his unique response to the sickness that is modernity. And that response is Amor Fati and the eternal recurrence of the same. Art was the means and the goal of this great yes to life. Tragic art, tragic existence. And the course is based on Nietzsche's major works and his unpublished notes, which are not yet available in English. And I'm inviting all of you to join the course. It would be very good to see you there for 7 lectures, 8 group seminars, and 7 work sessions in the, let's just call it, digital foyer or digital and the digital work sessions or reading room. We will be reading and working together, everyone to themselves but silently, and live lectures with the foyer. So Nietzsche thought that his name would be a fate. That's what he says in Ecce Homo, how one becomes what one is. I think the first chapter is why I write such good books and why I am so intelligent and why I'm so clever. And we shall see, right? He's a profound thinker, and it's not very easy. Now, you will see when you go with me through the lectures that you won't be getting off easy, right? The Apollonian no longer means rational, and the Dionysian no longer just means irrational. That kind of schemata out the window. Any kind of simplistic thinking is not allowed. The Apollonian is the dreamlike justification of existence, but at the same time a measuredness, so that the dream does not become pathological, harmful deception. And Dionysus is something else entirely than irrational. Those simplistic schemata are not appropriate for philosophy. It is a philosophy course, but you don't need to have any previous knowledge in Nietzsche or even in philosophy. Some of the best students are people who come from just somewhere else and are participating in it. So yeah, I think that I might do another short video on this, but if you want, you should definitely sign up now, because if not, then the course will be full, and we'll start next week. And how this works is that you'll be getting emails from me every week about readings, etc. So it'll be quite intense for 7 weeks. And usually what happens, as I said before, some people afterwards join together and start a reading group. I think there's a reading group on Being in Time and Heidegger, and there's a reading group on Nishitani's Religion and Nothingness. And Nietzsche, we shall see. I don't think so. Heidegger said Nietzsche is the last metaphysician. There is something to that, but Nietzsche is going much further beyond that. And of course, the tragedy of Nietzsche is that Nietzsche became an overly subjectivistic thinker. He would posit a subject that would be able to posit a reality. And that perhaps is then where Nietzsche gets lost and fails to actually get to the point of really writing for a bridge towards a new world. But that's not always that easy if you are someone like Nietzsche. In fact, you should never blame a thinker for not being able to think everything. Right? That's a bit ridiculous to do this. In fact, Nietzsche has paved the way for those who are willing to walk it and to take it on as their task to think towards a genuine future that's human and not for machines or capital. So, with no further ado, I'd like to invite all of you to join the course, share this video, ask questions, and yes, so see you all very, very soon at the course. The link to enroll is right there down below, and you use the coupon Nietzsche50, you get 50% off for now. I'll close this very soon. Thank you very much. Good night.